Darren Comber is Chief Executive at Scott Brownrigg with responsibility for the quality of design across the practice. Early in the pandemic, through the firm's research arm, the Design Research Unit, the practice set out to investigate what architects and urban designers could do to minimize the impact of the current and of future pandemics. So Darren, you had your staff in the UK, New York, Singapore, as well as Amsterdam, looking at the design of future buildings and environments for solutions to the spread of contagions. And so what have you found?
Well, it's been far-ranging. I think we started it for a number of reasons, Peter. One was to keep our team connected whilst we're all sitting at home, but also feel that we could do something as architects in terms of looking at the built environment. So it's really important we didn't look at it one-dimensionally. We looked at all sorts of different things. I think it's fair to say that there's not one answer, clearly, but we've made massive progress across the last 18 months, and we've explored areas that we never thought we'd go into. And I think the issue, though, is still that to some degree, human contact is still detached. So experiences are only being partially shared, and it's fair to say that if you look at what, when Aldo Rossi talked about collective memory, he developed the notion of shaping. And why that's important is this combination of architecture, form, space, and event is so important that we look at the environment in a meaningful way, and that we have interventions that can build on collective memory. So that's one notion, and that comes into the layers of the city. So, perhaps I'll talk about that a little bit later, but the key thing was that the answers to many of the things that we started to look at came through lots of different facets. So whether it was digital twin modeling, to look at how we could minimize the spread of pathogens in the built environment, or how we could regenerate cities that were now sort of almost like wastelands and very unoccupied. So what we've discovered is the topics are seemingly endless, but they all have a layer that fits on to each one of them. So again, I go back to this sort of notion of collective memory, because we need to get vibrancy back into our communities. And how do we do that? Well, we need to make it a safe environment for everybody to be in. And that was really, I guess, what was the absolute key. So turning it right way to the beginning, why did we do it? We did it because we needed to find a way that people felt safe in the built environment, whether it be in a city, whether it be in the buildings, our homes, in our shops, whatever it was. And I think that some of the subjects that we tackled, it's fair to say we'd never thought about previously. Material sciences, to stop the spread of contagions, or whether it's actually then in the spaces that we inhabit. And I think what we found, and particularly last year, some of the talks that I was involved with and with other people, was that we've always wanted healthier environments, but this has really kick-started it. And we've all said, right, okay, we cannot just accept it the way it is. So I think that the whole industry and profession is going to move on probably a decade quicker than we are right now. We've already seen it with cycleways and traffic movement, and how we're actually saying how we need to interact. So I think out of what was incredibly negative, there have been some positive aspects come through.
So your buildings will be safer in future?
Well, I'd like to think they were safe beforehand. However, I think when I say safer, what I mean is that the internal environments, I'm a big advocate of naturally ventilated buildings. Sustainability is something in the practice that we've always pushed forward. And to look at how we minimize energy is one thing. But I think sustainability is often only put onto that platform. And obviously so you've got the environment, but obviously it's socially and economically as well. And I think they're the two key items that have come out of this. So looking at structural inequality within our cities, within our buildings, who occupies them, how we occupy them. So when we talk about safer, I think that they are going to be to a degree, better buildings, because what we're able to do, it's not a case of saying, well, look, we want to do this, and somebody saying, yeah, I'd kind of like to do that, but I'm not going to get more rent for it if we talk about an office building. Now it's a case of people won't occupy them. So the market is become considerably more sophisticated in an incredibly short period of time. People want more from their buildings and spaces if they're going to return to them. So that's kind of what I mean about safer.
So you called on others within the profession, academia, and the research world to join you. Did you get a lot of support from others?
Yeah, it's been, Peter, it's been super supportive. When we started it back in March of 2020 on this whole journey, if you like, I reached out to everyone I knew. So I sat there one evening, we closed our studios in across the world, actually, all on one day, all 8 of our studios. And I sat down that evening and thought, right, what are we going to do? And I was up till 3 in the morning, just firing off emails saying, I've got this idea. The profession has a responsibility in a way to actually look at some of the issues here. And can you help me? So, I don't have all the answers, and I never presumed that I would. So I reached out to many people. And of course, there was a little bit of self preservation. So I had some people come back to look, we're not even sure we can, manage our own businesses at the moment. So great that you're doing this, but we'll help later on. And they all did. And I think what was fantastic was that within certain industries, we reached out to everyone. So it was engineers, we went to material scientists, and we even touched on the world of Formula One, where we're working with one of the teams, and I asked them, I said, can we use your wind tunnels for testing how pathogens might move through air? And they were absolutely fundamentally, yeah, of course, we can, we'll talk to you about that. They were then looking at, they put us in touch with some material scientists who then were looking at how you could, not have pathogens living on surfaces. So, all of those sorts of things. People, Peter, that I'd never met before. Phenomenally interesting. And everybody, just wanted to help out. And I think that was good. And I suppose the thing that was perhaps most endearing was at the height of when we were writing, so much, the media coverage was between 200 and 350 million people worldwide were reading the articles that we were sharing, but they were also wanting to help. So we had so many people contributing. So it was a kind of a two-way street. And I think that those elements, really gave me great confidence that in society, actually, that everybody wanted to lend a hand. And, things like prediction modeling and collaborations were two of the key facets. And they're not sort of questions perhaps that can be considered in isolation. And as I say, we don't have all the answers, but it was the ability to go and find people that could actually help us along this journey. So, within so many different sectors, hospitality to airports, how do you get people through an airport safely? How do you get them onto the planes in a fast way? Things that I'd never really thought about. So, it's been a very interesting journey, and it continues.
And how can people find out the sort of what you've discovered? So
our website, we've published. So what we decided was this wasn't going to be just something that gained us an advantage in the market or anything like that. Everything we've written, we've shared. So our website, you can find everything. So in the design research unit section, every article that we've put is published. And we write papers called Intelligent Architecture, and they're periodicals, and all of the materials in that. So it's all there for people to find. Great. And help us with.
So you're in international practice, but headquartered in London. And how do you see London changing as it faces the sort of triple whammy of Brexit, COVID, and levelling up with the rest of Britain?
Well, I mean, this is a excuse me, a particular passion of mine. So we've interfaced recently with the City of London, and particularly the Mayor, to look at the plan, particularly for a City of London, how they're going to regenerate, how they're going to meet the challenges. And before we even get to that part, one of the fundamental aspects is connecting with our cities. So what we've seen is that towns and city centres have been hit hardest through the pandemic. And there have been positives. So the result has been what's on my doorstep is what I'll do. So localism has come back. So it isn't all, again, it's not all bad, but being able to walk 15 minutes and grab everything is phenomenal. However, that doesn't help our cities. And the cities rely on people being able to move around them easily. So the issue of being in a city and why we might go to the city, of course, it's diversity, it's access to different experiences, going back to this whole collective memory, shared experiences is hugely important. But how we get to them is the question we have to deal with first. So returning confidence in terms of back onto public transport, that's a big aspect that has to be done. Then once we're in our cities, how do we move around them? We see a huge positive shift in cycleways and the ability to cycle more safely in our cities and get around them. And Peter, I know you're a massive cycling fan as I am, and being able, I use my bike everywhere. And what has to happen though is attitudes need to change. So when you turn up at a restaurant or whatever, where do you leave your bike? Is that, or if you go to a hotel? I checked into a hotel to go to a restaurant in a pandemic, and I said, could I leave my bike somewhere? They said, of course, sir. And they took it and they gave me a coat check and they put it in the coat room. But it was kind of like the first time I've ever done that, but that sort of thing. And it's kind of like a small point, but that has to happen more. And we have to, like in office buildings, there has to be, you don't just lock them up outside. There should be somewhere in reception. So we've, to store them, for instance, we've changed our entire reception in our office, in our studio in Covent Garden. It's a bike store now. So when you come in, you hang your bike on the wall. You don't have to take it down to the basement or any of this sort of thing anymore. It has to be root and branch. We have to look at the whole thing. It isn't about just, you know, creating power cycleways. I guess the other thing though that we found with our cities is a massive aspect that's exposed, and it's acutely evident, perhaps more in cities than through the pandemic, and that's the issue of inequality. This is one of the, I think, one of the key challenges that we face going forward, because what's evident is that the cities where we've got core city workers that are able to work from home, it's a choice. You can take that choice, go, right, I'll work from home. But the result of that is that the spending power they had within the cities is now almost dissolved. And so all of the workers that supported has now, to a degree, disappeared. And that's one of the massive problems we have. So it's about choice. If you can make the choice to work from home, great. But if you can't, where does that leave you? So evidence suggests that the economic impact of the pandemic has been greatest on the impact, the greatest impact has been on our towns and cities. And that's consequentially caused even greater inequality. So, you know, if you can stay from home, you're saving more money, but if you can't stay from home, you're actually losing more money. So, you know, how do we address that? Well, we have to look at investment programs within our cities. We have to look at sustainable employment, so jobs that will actually develop over a period of time, but not be quite so reliant on city workers. So, you know, and it's a huge subject that probably I can't talk about now, but it is something I think that is such an important topic that we have to get to grips with. We have to get to grips with it now, because our cities play such a great role in the thriving economy, not just of the UK, but we've seen it in, you know, our other locations, as you mentioned.
So how have you been finding sort of workload in the firm at the moment, and how do you see the next 12 months or so? Well,
I think interestingly, workload is incredibly strong, which I'm, to a degree, I suppose, when we all started this pandemic, none of us really knew how this was going to pan out for us, but it's remained very, very strong. and that's in all of our locations. So internationally, so we've expanded internationally. We're looking at other markets. So I think it's fair to say that it's been quite a strong time, and we've got very, very interesting projects and lots of stuff on the horizon that we're either doing now. I think for me, one of the, and in my position, something I'm talking to with the RIBA as well, that the profession faces some very strong pressures right now. And it's how we deal with it collectively as a profession will determine how successful we all come through it. So the workload's strong, but actually access to talent pools right now, because of the effect of Brexit, has had an effect, definitely. We've seen a lot of phenomenal talent leave our shores. And that's made the talent pool smaller to actually draw through. The costs of things like, insurance, software costs rising, so that they're placing great pressures on our profession. So actually the irony is that the workload's fantastic, but the pressures that we face as a profession are equally quite strong. But again, if I go back to exactly what we started this discussion on, I think collectively we can address this. It isn't about one practice saying, right, well, this is what we're doing, we're just going to shut the doors and we're going to do it our way. But I think as a profession, we can address this positively. So yeah, I'm positive we'll find a way. But yeah, they're the challenges, the immediate challenges we face at the moment.
Very good. Well, Darren, thank you very much for your insights, and I'll direct our viewers to your website so they can read more about the very important research you've been doing. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you very much. Delightful to talk to you.